She saved his mother's life, yet the woman looked at her as if she had just stolen the family's honor. The surgical light blazed down on sweat-slicked skin. Amara pressed down, pumping her hands. 1, 2, 3. The heart jolted, a spasm, then a flicker of breath. The woman opened her eyes, but instead of gratitude, she stared at Amara as though she'd come back from the brink just to judge her. By morning, the media exploded. Black nurse saves billionaire's mother, heroic rescue or calculated move? Eli said nothing, not once, not publicly. Amara left quietly with only one sentence. If you love me, then stop standing in the middle. Because she knew, in a matter of hours, the family board would convene, and if Eli chose wrong, every door would close on her. For good. Amara Bennett, 29, head nurse in pediatrics. 3 years ago, she was behind the kitchen counter of a tiny diner in South Atlanta, her hair smelling of fryer oil every night, days at work. Nights with pencils, watercolors, and pastel dust. She drew sick children. She drew dreams she never dared speak aloud. Her mother once told her, these hands weren't born just to scrub hospital floors. But her mother died last year. No insurance. Amara couldn't do anything, except hold her hand as the pulse faded. Since then, she lived like she owed something. Not money, a promise. One day, she would open a care center for underprivileged children. A place where no one is turned away. Where no one leaves because they can't pay. That place was also where she met Eli Whitmore. Eli Whitmore, sole heir to Whitmore & Company, the real estate empire. Ivy League grad. Sharp suits, quiet power. He had everything people dream of. Shares, influence, a Forbes cover. But every night after the boardroom lights shut off, he slipped into the small studio behind his house. There, he traded his tie for a paintbrush. No landscapes, no family portraits. Only faces, most of them black. Side angles, steady gazes, dark skin lit with warm light. His father called it political art. His mother never asked, and Eli only said, I paint what I want to understand. In a house filled with lessons and legacy, art was the only thing he didn't need permission to exist. Hospital fundraiser gala, crystal chandeliers, white wine, evening gowns. In a quiet corner near the children's section, Amara sat curled up. Zoe, a 6-year-old battling cancer, gently held out her bare arm. Amara pulled a marker from her coat and started to draw purple petals on her skin. The first petal trembled, the second, perfect and round. Under the cold lights, a tiny hand bloomed. Eli stood across the room, ready to leave, then stopped. He saw everything, heard nothing, but Amara's eyes said it all. No pretense, no performance, just a woman using her hands to turn fear into softness. For the first time in his life, something in his chest skipped. It was late, the gala lights had dimmed. Eli walked up, holding 2 cups of hot mint tea. Amara was packing her markers. He offered a cup, gently. Walk with me? She took it, quietly, then softly said, You come from a world that's not meant for me. He didn't respond right away. The breeze tugged at her coat. One breath passed. Then he answered, Maybe, but I don't want to live in that world anymore. She looked at him a little longer than necessary. No roses, no limos, just a cup of tea and a man learning how to take off his mask. She didn't reply, but that night they walked until the city lights went out. No one dared call it love, but clearly, something had begun. 3 days after the gala, Eli brought a small gift box to the hospital. Inside, a set of oak-handled brushes with the finest bristles. Amara froze. She gently touched each one, then looked up. You know, I don't paint anymore. Then start again, Eli said, but this time, not as an escape. Their dates weren't in fancy restaurants. They happened in hospital hallways, sidewalk tea shops, and the park by the bus stop. There, Amara painted. Children with IV lines. Eyes that refused to give up. One evening, Eli walked into her break room. On the desk, a painting of Zoe by the window, bald, holding a teddy bear. Golden light poured in behind her. He quietly framed it. No words were needed, because some moments don't need sound. The Whitmore estate, winter party, guests and wine in crystal glasses. Amara entered in a simple navy dress, lightly holding Eli's arm. Margaret Whitmore, his mother, waited in the foyer. Her smile was sharp, just polite enough. Eli began to introduce her, but Margaret spoke first. Ah, Amara. She's in healthcare. One sentence. Not wrong, but missing. Missing pride. Missing the word girlfriend. Missing acknowledgement. Amara pressed her lips together. She was no stranger to condescension, but this time it cut deeper, because it came from the mother of the man she loved. Eli froze, about to speak, but surrounded by eyes, all he could do was squeeze her hand a little tighter, not to protect, just to hold on, to someone who was starting to pull away. Monday morning, news spread faster than pulse. Front page of the city's biggest tabloid, Billionaire's heir secretly dating black nurse, love or social climb. A photo of them holding hands in a park, once random, now stretched into scandal. Low angles, loud headline, cheap tone. Amara sat alone in the break room. Her phone wouldn't stop. Texts, calls, whispers behind her back. Her hands trembled scrolling through comments. Just another gold digger. Nurse aiming for the red carpet. She's a great actress. Tears came before she could stop them. Not out of shame, but because a part of her wondered, is Eli staying silent to protect his name? Of all the words flying around, she only needed one. Where are you? Simone, Amara's best friend, was the first to show up at her apartment after the article. She sat down, not angry, just sad. Do you really think someone like us can belong in their world? Amara turned away, silent. Simone continued, soft but piercing. Not because you're not enough, but because to them, we were never enough to begin with. It felt like her heart was pulled out, because it didn't come from a stranger, but from someone who knew what it meant to carry this skin. Amara sat still, caught between two storms. On one side, a community she loved. On the other, the man who made her feel at peace. And for the first time, she wondered, was she betraying herself just to hold on to love? Eli arrived at the hospital at dusk. In his hands, a painting wrapped in brown paper, edges carefully folded like it could tear with wind. Amara opened it. Inside, two hands, one brown, one white, clasping each other against a silent gray background. No faces, no signature, just veins drawn with all the tenderness he'd never said aloud. She looked at him, no smile. Is this a proposal? Eli didn't deny it. His eyes said more than words could. Amara folded the painting, hands still shaking. What would your mother say? The question dropped like a stone in still water. Eli looked at her, then away, not a word. This silence wasn't hesitation. It was him. Still not ready to pay the price for saying what needed to be said. Late afternoon. Margaret Whitmore's office was silent, the curtains half drawn. Eli walked in. Before he could sit down, his mother slid a file across the desk. If you marry her, you'll lose your inheritance, and your name will be removed from the board. Her voice was cold, sharp, without a trace of emotion. It wasn't a threat, just an administrative notice, like striking a name from a roster. Eli glanced at the family photo on the shelf. Him, 10 years old, wedged between his parents, clutching his first art trophy. He clenched his fists under the table. His heart pounded, his throat tightened. But he said nothing, didn't protest, didn't ask why. He just sat there, like a man realizing that to be loved, he'd have to stop being himself. Friday morning. The new shift schedule went up on the hospital board. Amara's name was gone from the primary roster, without explanation. She stepped into the chief's office, voice steady. I'd like to ask, why the sudden change? He looked up, sighed. We're under a lot of external pressure. Did I do something wrong? He shook his head, avoiding her eyes. Nothing professional. It's just, things are delicate right now. A rejection without a charge, a sentence without a verdict. Amara walked out, hollow inside. She once believed medical ethics would protect her, but now she saw. Skin color was still the first thing people noticed, before the word nurse. Noon. Mara got a frantic call from Zoe's mother. Her voice trembled. They're saying, treatment is canceled. My insurance was revoked. Mara rushed to the hospital boardroom. Zoe had just finished her third round of chemo. Still weak, her hair hadn't even begun to grow back. Mara knocked and stepped into the meeting. Please reconsider. Zoe still has a chance if we continue treatment. No one looked up. No one spoke. I'll work extra shifts. I'll help fundraise. Just give her one more chance. Her voice cracked. Then, without meaning to, she knelt. In front of polished shoes, in front of turned faces, a nurse, a human being, begging for a child's right to live, and in return, silence. The rain was heavy. Amara stood outside Eli's apartment, soaked and breathless. He opened the door, surprised. She didn't wait for a greeting. "I knelt today, Eli. For a child. For a life. And where were you?" Eli said nothing. "If you really love me, why aren't you standing with me? Why won't you say anything?" Rain lashed the railing. Wind pushed down the hallway. Still, no answer. He looked away. That silence was louder than any rejection. Amara nodded, not needing more. She turned, step by step, leaving the doorway, where love had stood still when she needed it to move, and Eli still stood there, watching the woman he loved walk into the rain. The painting room smelled of old paint. Dim light spilled over dusty palettes. Eli sat motionless, brush in hand, but he didn't paint. On the easel, an unfinished portrait, Amara. But her eyes weren't there, just the curve of her face, the flow of her hair, and a blank space where her soul should have been. The door creaked open. Clara, his sister, stepped in quietly. She came close, eyes on the incomplete lines. Her fingers brushed the corner of the wooden frame. "You've never left a painting unfinished." Eli didn't reply. He just sat, as if he were part of the artwork. Faded, lost, directionless. Clara looked at him for a long moment, then asked softly, "If it hurts this much, why aren't you going after her?" But Eli stayed silent, because those tied to legacy often lose even their own voice. Amara had just finished her shift, her fingers still stained with watercolor. Clara waited in the hospital lobby, holding a rolled canvas. "He didn't send this, but I think you need to see it." In a cafe near the park, Clara unrolled the painting, a soft ink wash. Amara, sitting alone in the rain, wet hair tangled, eyes distant, sad. "He paints you every day, never signs them." Amara stared, her hands trembling. "Why?" Clara gave a sad smile. "He says he doesn't deserve to put his name next to that face. No dramatics, no long explanations, just a painting, a pair of eyes, and one quiet truth. Eli never let go. He just loved her the way someone does when they're scared they're not enough." Saturday night shift. The hospital hallway was cold and quiet. Amara was reviewing charts when an emergency case rolled in. Unconscious, pale, weak pulse. Name tag, Margaret Whitmore. No doctors, no family arrived in time. Only Amara, the woman Margaret once looked at like a stain on her bloodline. Amara stood still. Memories rushed in. The contemptuous glance, the threats, the silence when she was removed from her post. Then she put on her gloves, grabbed the defibrillator, began chest compressions. Each beat, each second, a fight for life. No one knew. No orders were given, not for recognition, just one human. Saving another, even if that other once saw her as a blemish. Elevator doors slid open. Eli ran down the hallway, heart racing. A text from Clara. "Mom's in ICU, Central Hospital." He burst into the unit, stopped at the glass. Through the window, he saw Amara, sitting beside his mother's bed, her hand wrapped gently around Margaret's frail fingers. No blame, no one asked her to stay. She simply stayed, to hold life in place for the one who once refused her. Eli's eyes burned. Tears fell, soundless, not from fear of losing his mother, but because he knew, while he had been silent, hiding, Amara had never walked away. She didn't need wealth, didn't want praise, only needed a hand to hold. And in that moment, Eli understood. True love is what remains when everything else is stripped away. The monitor beeped steadily. Faint light spilled through the white curtain. Margaret opened her eyes, slow, weak. She coughed, her throat dry, looked around, then stopped, on the familiar face. Amara stood there, silent, steady, her hand still resting beside the bed. Margaret blinked. With effort, she whispered, "Thank you." A pause. Amara replied, voice soft but firm, "I didn't do it for you." Margaret furrowed her brow, confused. Amara took one step back, eyes unwavering. "I did it for the person you once failed to understand. The one who believed love means standing with life, not prejudice. No resentment, no need for forgiveness, just a declaration, proud in kindness, heartbreaking in grace. The Whitmore boardroom was silent. Eli stood before rows of leather chairs facing cold, calculating eyes. No slides, no lawyers, no aides, just a thin envelope, and certainty in his voice. "I'm relinquishing all my shares," his tone low, steady. "No conditions. I ask only one thing. Let me establish the Zoe Fund." A few exchanged glances, a murmur. Eli continued, gripping the envelope tighter. "It's a fund for children denied care due to lack of insurance, because no child should be filtered by a bank account." One older board member raised a brow. "You're willing to lose your future for a name?" Eli met his gaze, unblinking. "Not for a name, for a chance to live." The press room was packed, cameras flashing, microphones clustered. Eli stood in the glare, not flinching. No script, no grand speech. "We're letting children die, just because their parents are poor." His voice was steady, slow, but every word landed like a hammer. "Healthcare should never be a privilege. It's the right to live." Headlines exploded. "Whitmore heir publicly defies the system." Far off, behind the glass doors, Amara stood. She didn't step inside, but when their eyes met, she gave a small nod. No words, but enough for Eli to know. She saw him, and she believed. Do you think Eli was sacrificing or reclaiming himself? And if it were you, would you give up everything for something no one else believed in? Zoe's hospital room was quiet. Only the IV drip echoed. She'd fallen asleep after her interrupted treatment. Her mother sat beside her, gripping an unpaid medical bill. The door creaked open. Eli stepped in. Simple shirt, a folder in hand. He said nothing, just walked over and placed a sheet of paper on the table. Insurance, premium level. His signature was bold, clean at the bottom. Payment, personal. Refundable, no. Conditions, none. Zoe's mother looked up, voice cracking. "Why you?" Eli glanced at Zoe, then replied softly, "Because once I stayed silent when someone else begged for this on her behalf." He wasn't asking to be forgiven. He was just doing the right thing, even if it came late. The hospital lobby was busier than usual. News had spread. Zoe would continue treatment. Relief swept through the pediatric wing. Eli stepped in. Wrinkled shirt, eyes still red. Amara was mid-conversation with a nurse. She turned, sensing someone behind her. No words, no apology, no explanations, just two people, moving toward each other and holding on, tight. His arms wrapped around her like if he let go, he might lose her forever. She closed her eyes, forehead resting on his shoulder. No tears, but she trembled. Around them, doctors, nurses, staff all paused. No one spoke, but their eyes said everything. They understood, they accepted, and after everything. This was the kind of embrace no one had any reason left to oppose. Late afternoon. The air was crisp. Eli pulled up to a stretch of land in the outskirts, knee-high grass, sunlight slanting over red earth. Amara stepped out, surprised. "Where are we?" Eli didn't answer right away. He handed her a thin set of papers, all signed. "I bought it. My name's not on the license." She flipped through the documents, confused. This land, once zoned for commercial use, now reclassified. Purpose, community health care. Eli looked at her, voice calm, firm. "You don't have to wait for funding. You don't need permission. You can build Maya Center right here." Amara looked at the sky, then back at him. "No, thank you. Because some dreams, when they come true, only need someone who truly believes in them." A breeze swept over the land, smelling of damp earth and wild grass. Amara pulled an old paper tube from her bag. She unrolled a faded sketch. "Do you remember the gala night?" It was a drawing. Eli, alone, under retreating lights. No one beside him. No applause, just his back, solitary, in a world that never truly fit him. Eli froze. His fingers trembled as he touched the lines. "You kept this?" Amara nodded, eyes on the sketch. "I kept everything. That was real." One who once painted to survive, one who once hid everything worth painting. Now they stood, holding two pieces of memory, mirrored but sharing the same loneliness. Opening day of the Maya Center. The sky was soft blue, tiny flags fluttering in the wind. Laughter of children filled the wide courtyard. Zoe, her hair just beginning to return, clutched a pair of scissors. She cut the red ribbon with a grin that made pain feel like a story long past. Amara stood at a simple wooden podium. Her eyes scanned the crowd, patients, parents, medical staff, and Eli, standing quietly at the edge, watching. She took the mic, voice gentle but clear. Maya Center isn't just a building. It's a doorway for children once told no simply because they lacked insurance. It's a second chance. For them, for their families, and for people like me. Applause swelled. Wind whispered through the trees. A new chapter had begun. Quiet, but full of hope. Later that afternoon, the center was calm again. Just sunlight, leftover candy smells, and soft grass underfoot. Clara approached Eli, pressing a small velvet box into his hand. No words, just a nod. Eli walked slowly toward Amara. She stood by a patch of freshly planted flowers. He stopped, looked at her, then knelt. Inside the box, a simple ring. No diamonds, no glitter, just truth in his eyes. Not for my mother, not for headlines or redemption. I'm proposing because of you, because of the way you looked in that painting, because of everything you did when no one was watching. I've chosen you for a long time. I just finally have the courage to say it. No music, no crowd, just two people, in the place their wounds once dreamed of, a small wedding. In the garden behind the Maya Center, soft gospel hymns played, children's laughter echoed in the distance. Amara, in a simple white dress holding wildflowers, eyes peaceful, like the journey she'd survived. Eli waited at the end of the aisle, heart calm. Sure, no grand guests, just the ones who mattered. Then, the gate creaked open. Margaret stepped in. No announcement, no invitation. Without a word, she walked straight to Amara. Her hand trembling, she opened a small wooden box. Inside, an old bracelet, tarnished silver. It was Eli's grandmother's. She used to say, "Don't wait for perfect people, choose the ones who stay when everyone else walks away." She placed the bracelet on Amara's wrist, then walked away. A silent acceptance. No words required. Morning light spilled through the Maya Center's tall windows. Amara stood on a step stool, paintbrush in hand. Gentle strokes filling the wall with color. A mural was taking shape. Children holding hands. Fields of flowers. A sky filled with clouds shaped like hearts. Her belly showed slightly under her loose shirt. Movements slow, but full of peace. Eli walked in, said nothing, wrapped his arms gently around her waist. "We're painting the future," he whispered, cheek resting on her shoulder. Amara said nothing, just tilted her head and kept tracing the outline of the rising sun. No more words needed, because true happiness is simply having someone stay when the day begins. Love isn't about winning someone, not about proving you're right to the world, not about applause, acceptance, or praise. Love is choosing someone. Even after they've hurt you, even after silence, distance, and scars, and choosing them again, and again, every day. Not because it's perfect, but because when something is real, it always deserves to begin again, with tenderness. What about you? Have you ever chosen someone, even when the whole world told you not to? If this story made you pause for even 1 second, leave a like, share it with someone who once made you believe in love, and subscribe, so we can keep holding on to the most beautiful things in our hearts.